little bit about me before we get started is I grew up playing volleyball, loved volleyball, went on a Division I scholarship to the University of Kansas and played there. That's why the floor is blue and red, Jayhawk colors. We didn't put a big Jayhawk because we didn't want to offend people, but we love the blue and red. And when I was at the University of Kansas, that's when our team was assigned a sports psychologist my freshman year. And I remember thinking, this is going to take me to my childhood. Why do we have to meet with this guy? I don't want to meet with him. And I was very reluctant at first as we started meeting with him. Our team was meeting with him, and then we met with him individually. And I, through my years at KU, learned so much about the mental part of my game, and that I wished I would have known when I was your guys' age, that I think I would have been a lot, probably been more successful and performed better under pressure, and just in general, had I known a lot of the things that he taught me. So from my collegiate days, I just kind of fell in love with mental toughness, and not the cookie dig into your childhood stuff, but just what's going on up here affects how we play and how we perform. That wouldn't be someone who's lost, would it?
I don't think so. It's just my fault.
Okay.
I'm not expecting.
Okay. And so then I've been coaching for about 16 years. I coached club in high school. I coached high school for 10 years. And I've seen just in teaching this to my young athletes, just seeing the way it's really helped them perform. So I just have a passion for it. I do not have a degree in sports psychology. What I've learned and what I kind of pass on is stuff that I've just kind of poured into reading myself and what I've learned from great coaches and great players. So a lot of what I did, and I have it on the back of this, these are a lot of the people that I quote are great sports psychologists themselves. So Jeff Jansen is a great sports psychologist, and I make all my captains, when they have to kind of interview for the captain's position, and then once they become a captain, then we go through this 10-week leadership manual together. And Jeff Jansen puts out leadership manuals, and he also does a lot with sports psychology. He's very good. He works with a lot of college programs. And then Gary Mack wrote this book called Mind Gym, just like you work out in the physical gym. He's talking about working this out up here. And he works with a lot of professional athletes, and this is a really great book. And then something that I found recently that I really like is Jason Self's 10-minute mental toughness. So a lot of the components that I've taken are from these books, not things that I've made up. But I've also, these little things that I'm going to hand you are kind of a compilation of all that to put into a package of, these are things I think we can really hold on to as young athletes and get better at. So as I'm talking tonight, I'm referring to a lot of this stuff. I'm just trying to help you in your mental game. So we're going to start out, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you if you could kind of think back to your very, very best performance that you've ever had, where they call it in the zone, white moment, sweet spot, whatever that is. So the very, very best performance. And probably better if it's a little bit more recent than, you guys aren't that old, but 2 years ago. So if you can think about where you were, what you were wearing, who you were playing, what gym you're in, you can start to think about that. Even from this last weekend, the very best performance that you've had, or this last year. So can anyone think about a time when they played really well, it seemed really easy? Avery, you're shaking your head. Tell me about it.
Well, it was, I think, a while ago, and, well, not too long ago, like you said, and I think we were in red, and I think it was it was a practice, which was kind of surprising. It wasn't a game, it was just on fire, and scoring a bunch.
You're on fire, so you felt loose, right? It felt easy. Your breathing was probably not super fast, right? Everything kind of came naturally. Anyone else have a time when they played really well? I've watched you guys play some good basketball, so I know it's there. Do you have one, Jason? I can tell you some that I've watched you play where I just, wow, he's been on fire. Do you know you have any?
Last weekend.
Last weekend?
Championship game, and I think we won black.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was playing good defense, and I got to score a little.
Yeah? Who were you playing against?
The Miners.
The Miners? Okay, good. So you can kind of picture that. You can picture the gym you're in. You can picture who you were playing, what that felt like. Maybe when you were seeing a lot of things, your movements came really easy. All right? So now I want you to kind of walk that away, and then maybe from the same weekend, or from a different weekend, tell me a time where you had your worst game. It just, everything you did didn't work. It's like your feet were stuck in quicksand and you just weren't playing very well. So if you can think about that, so just kind of think back when it was just really difficult. It wasn't a lot of fun, and it was really hard to play. Can you think of that? Some people can think of that much quicker than the other one. Can you think of one, Boston? Of a game that was difficult? Or Deuce, do you have one? Yeah, when? Tell me about it. Last weekend? Which? Both games? Not good. Both what games? Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
Sunday? So didn't.
Well, my mental game wasn't really there, and I got 2 technicals and 2 games, so it wasn't the best weekend or that Sunday.
Okay. Okay, and how'd you play Saturday? How'd you play Saturday?
I think I did okay on Saturday.
Did good on Saturday. Okay. So when you take your best performance and you take your worst performance, and I'll ask athletes this all the time, and I have my players when I ask them that. I have one particular player. We were at a qualifying tournament in Kansas, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, she played the worst I have ever seen her play in the 3 years I've been coaching her. Awful. After the game, I had to come to Jesus talk with her. We talked for a while. We went through some things. She was pretty upset. She kind of walked around the convention center with her mom, came back, and at noon that day, so at 8 o'clock she had the worst. At noon that day, she played the very best I've ever seen her play in her entire life. And later I asked her, what was the difference between your 8 a.m. game and your 12 p.m. game? Did you go to the bathroom and rep and your skill got so much better? Or what was the difference between those 2 games? So what I'm going to ask you guys, if you think about it, what's the difference between your worst game of last weekend and your best game of last weekend? Do you feel like the difference was 10% mental and 90% physical, that your skill changed, or did you feel like it was 40% mental or 50% mental? So I'm going to have you put your hands up, and when I hit your number, what do you think the difference between your best game and your worst game is? You're going to put your hand down. Okay, so put your hands up. Okay, think about it. So do you think the difference between your best game and your worst game is 10% mental, 20% mental, 30% mental, 40% mental, 50, 60, 70, 80, 80, 90%. So the difference between Saturday and Sunday, you believe, is 90% mental, right? And that's what most athletes say, is that they'll say between your best and worst, it's not a physical difference, it's a mental difference. So then my question to you, my question to them is, what percent are you putting on your mental game? What percentage of time? What would you say? So he just knows this answer, so he's not going to answer. But most kids say 0. You say, I don't spend any time on my mental game because I don't know. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to do. That's what I want to help you guys with tonight. Is I want to give you some things that you can latch onto and say, this is going to make me a stronger player mentally. And that's what we're going to go after. Because I think most people believe it's important, but they don't know what to do about it. They don't put the time into it. And so it haunts them their whole career. And they struggle up here more than anything else. So I made these little books for you to go home with. And we're going to kind of go through these little books. So if you want to pass them out, Jersey and the Wise, I have numbers on. So if you leave them, I'll know who left them. And we'll get out of here. Yes. 34. 34. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to need some coaches. Okay, so don't look at them all yet. Don't look at them because we're going to go through them. And then I know it looks like a lot of information, but a lot of times in these, I'll do like a 3-day mental toughness clinic, and then the girls leave and they love it. And sometimes they're like, oh, I can't remember what you said about this and that, so I want to send them home with something so that we can work on it. I want to get these laminated so you can just stick them in your backpack and then kind of pick them out and think about it. But I have some other things for you that are kind of laminated that you can stick against your sweaty shoes. So just a couple quotes about mental toughness. There's a lot of science that goes into it, and a lot of people that believe in it. And I'm just going to give you a couple quotes, and I'm going to try to keep this simple. But competition is won or lost on a 6-inch playing field between the ears, says Bobby Jones. Concentration and mental toughness are the margins of victory, says Bill Russell. My mind is my biggest asset. I expect to win every tournament I play, says Tiger Woods. The most important part of a player's body is his shoulders, says Ty Cobb. Cops. So there's a lot of great athletes that will value the mental part of the game. You can program yourself to be positive. Being positive is a discipline, and the more adversity you face, the more positive you have to be. Being positive helps build confidence and self-esteem, and that's Rick Pitino. And there's some other things in here from the Mind Gym. What you think affects how you feel and perform. Training your brain is as important as training your body. Actions follow our thoughts and images. The mind can only concentrate well on one thing at a time. Rather than suppress what you don't want to happen, you must focus on what you do want to happen. So we're going to kind of talk through these things. The way that this is broken out, when I work with athletes, is we kind of break it out into two things. What I want you to do pre-game, what I want you to do mid-game, and what I want you to do post-game. So that you can kind of hang on to some things of, this is what I'm going to do before a game, this is what I'm going to do during a game, think about, this is what I'm going to do after a game. So that's what this little book has broken out. I'll tell you, the pregame is going to be the biggest chunk, so put your helmet on, you're ready for this part. So I'm going to give you a lot of information in this pregame part. The midgame and the postgame are not as much information. This pregame part, we're going to talk a lot about this book, and I've really appreciated this book because it's giving kids something that they can do. So I spend about 3 hours before every season. We go over a big chunk of mental toughness and make up notebooks for my girls, and then they do it before every practice and before every competition. And then after competitions and after practices. So when in this book here, I think what who Pele is, one of the best soccer players to have ever lived, right? In this book it talks about his pregame routine and what he did before every game. And he would go into the locker room about 30 minutes before every game, and he would find a back corner, and he'd put a towel over his head, and he would start to replay kind of highlights in his head. So he'd go back to playing on the beaches of Brazil and how, the wind blowing, how he loved the game. And then he would start thinking about his best performances, at the World Cup when he did this, when he did that. And then he would start to think about that day, who he's playing against, what he's going to do, what his plan A, B, C is, and he watches himself dribbling through defenders and performing the way he wants to perform. And it takes about 30 minutes to do that, takes a towel off, and then he's ready to go perform. When I watch most young athletes, they're talking about what so-and-so said on Facebook, and then they go play. And there's no kind of routine that goes into it. They're talking about the pizza they want to eat at lunch. They're talking about all kinds of other things, who's in the stand, not in the stands. And then they expect their body to just all of a sudden know the game plan, be in the moment, and produce. And it doesn't happen the same. But when you talk to really good athletes, they have something they do before every game. When you look at performance, we're going to talk about kind of the beginning of a game. When I watch people perform and I watch their mental game, if this is good, if this is a kind of a good mental state, you watch people, sometimes they'll start down here and then they'll kind of elevate during the game, and then something goes wrong and then they drop and then they come back up and then drop, and man, maybe they got pulled for a little while and then they got in and they made a three-point shot. And their mental game goes like this, up and down, and it's based on all these external factors that are going on in the game. When you watch really good athletes, they start, so if this is a 0 and this is a 10, and this is performance, and then this is kind of, we'll talk about that. But good athletes kind of start in a good place, and then they just kind of stay up in here. They might have a few dips up and down, but they stay really steady throughout the game. And that's my goal for you guys, is to teach you how to start in a good place, and how to stay in a good place, and how to end in a good place. So, different kind of graph now. So if you look at performance like this, and this is performance, and this is what we call like arousal state, or how excited that you are. And this is 0 to 10. So this is totally juiced up, so excited, can't wait to play these guys, and this is, I'm so tired, I don't want to be here. If you think about this like a guitar string, so if I have a very tight guitar string and I pluck it, it's going to snap and break, right? If I have a very flat guitar string, it's going to sound awful. So in order to start at this good place up in here, we have to know our number before the game. We have to start in a good place. So I had a girl when I was coaching at Christian Holy Family for 10 years, and I had a girl that whenever we played big matches, she would get so juiced up that we would go into warm-ups and she would blow balls to the back 40. But it didn't matter because it was warm-ups. And she was just so hyped up and you could barely talk to her. She was bouncing all over the place. Then we'd get in a game and she would continue to blow balls to the back 40 and she'd miss her first 5 attacks. And then her confidence would plummet, and then I'd pull her out and we'd do this all game, going back and forth, because she didn't start in a good place. She was like a shaken bottle of pop. So one day before her pregame, I came up to her and I pulled her earphones out, And I listened to what she was listening to. She was listening to this like heavy metal music. I was like, no, sister, classical music, we're gonna calm you down, we're gonna get you in a better place before you start. Because she was snapping like a guitar string every time we played it.
What's up, back 40? Is that what you said?
Back 40, like blowing it out.
Out of bounds.
Out of bounds. Hitting it not 2 feet out of bounds, but 15 feet out of bounds. Because she just had so much adrenaline going. So it'd be like, shooting air balls like crazy, or things like that. Just way too jazzed up, making a lot of fouls right at the beginning because you're so physical, because you're so juiced up. So you make 3 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the game, right? So we kind of have to figure out how for volleyball, we want to be in about a 6-7. Volleyball is a skill sport, so we can't be so tight that we're shaking things off. When I talk with football teams, they need to be like an 8-9. You're about to get pummeled to the ground, so you've got to be a little bit more ramped up. I think that basketball is probably, I would say, about a 6-7, maybe a 7 or 8, just because you're so active in basketball. I think baseball is similar to a 6-7. So you want to be in a good place mentally before you start a game. So we're going to talk about how do you get to that place mentally? How do we start a game in a good place? In this 10-minute mental toughness, it gives you 5 things to do before practice and before competition. And I put them on my fingers and we're going to go through them. And I know that this might be a lot of information for you, but I want you to hang on to it. And if you only take one of the 5 and you start somewhere, on this very back part, I have kind of a triangle of a progression of your mental game. And if you guys just being here and learn about it, and your coach being invested enough to learn about it, you're going to be on the page where most people aren't even on the page. So your mental game will progress, and it's not a magic pill. It's not like you're going to leave here and then all of a sudden you're going to play great the rest of your life. Just like we're working on our physical muscles, we have to work on our mental muscles, and this is a start, okay? So go to the pregame, and we're going to talk about the pregame. So there's 5 things that I want my athletes to do before practice and before games. So, and you can look up here because this is not going to make any sense to you until I talk about it. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take a centering breath. I know that sounds a little yoga-ish, but there's a lot of science that goes behind it, and I can read you some of it. But when your heart rate gets to a certain point, so at a resting point, your heart rate needs to be at one point. When you face pressure and your adrenaline starts to go, your heart rate raises. When your heart rate raises past a certain point, when it gets past 140, your body gets into kind of a survival thing. And your visual fields actually get smaller, so sometimes, I don't know if you guys have ever played defense, and you can't see the screen coming, your vision changes, you don't anticipate things the same. A lot of that, if you get into too much of a fight or flight and your heart rate is too high, you're going to not perform as well. When you guys are telling me about your best performances, it's when you were loose and when you're athletic. When you ask people about their best performances, it's not when they're tight and when they're anxious. It's hard to repeat success in practice in games when your heart rate is so elevated. So what they call this centering breath, and it actually is diaphragm breathing, and it just takes your heart rate down. So there's times when, like we had to qualify this year for Junior Olympics, and my team was in a very tight situation. We succeeded on these 2 points, we qualified, we didn't qualify. And I took time out and I said, come in here, and they came in and I said, take a breath. And they all just took a breath. What do we got to do to get these 2 points? Just 2 points. We're going to do this, let's go, right? So just kind of calm things down, take a deep breath, calm things down. So I'm going to have you guys do it with me. You can expand these numbers, but we're going to keep them small because when I first did this, I was going to pass out. So we're going to keep it small at first. So we're going to breathe in for 4, we're going to hold for 2, we're going to breathe out for 5. Okay? So breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5. So sometimes when my girls go back in a really pressure situation and they're serving, you'll see them just kind of take a deep breath and then let it out. When you're taking a free throw, you can do that, take a deep breath, let it out. And they say breathe in anxiety and frustration, breathe out relaxation. So just kind of breathe it out, let it go. They say that anxiety is excitement without breath. So it's great to be excited, it's not good to be anxious. So when someone's really nervous before a game, we want to just breathe. Breathe out anxiety, breathe in, excitement. So that's the first thing that they're going to do is just take a breath. And I have girls practicing because they got to practice kind of relaxing and breathing. So that's the first thing you're going to do, centering breath. What's the first thing? Centering breath. Easy, you can do that one, right? It takes next 30 seconds. The second thing you're going to do is called a performance statement. So we're going to talk a lot about self-talk. I tell my girls you've got two kind of people that you can listen to. For you guys, I'll name them masculine names instead of my feminine names. So we'll call the one on our left, we'll call him Danny Downer. And this one we're going to call Positive Pete. And what's going up here, what you're telling yourself, the program that you pull up in your brain is what your body, thoughts, actions follow thoughts. So what you're thinking up here, if you're thinking, oh God, don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it, you're going to miss it, right? So if I said to you, don't think of a pink elephant in blue running shoes. Don't think of a pink elephant in blue running shoes. Don't think of a pink elephant in blue running shoes. All of a sudden in your mind is a pink elephant with blue running shoes, right? So if you're thinking, don't miss it, or what if I do this, and then what if coach pulls me out, and what if I miss this shot, we lose this game, we drop in this bracket, and the coach doesn't talk to me again, and my mom doesn't feed me dinner, my dog bites me, right? You know, in your mind is just going, all these things. You're going to get tight, and you're not going to perform very well, right? So what we want to train is what you're talking to yourself, the program that you're bringing up. So we want to build up Positive Pete and not listen to Danny Downer. So one of the things that we want Positive Pete to tell us is what we want our body to do. Not what we don't want it to do, but what we want it to do. So don't miss it is not giving my body a technical cue that it can follow. We want to tell our body what we want it to do. So I call this a performance cue, and I put it on my second finger because it's like a gun going off, like in track, like a performance gun. So we're going to tell ourselves a performance cue before every game, in every practice, and it'll change throughout this. So I have here, whatever this is with you, I have it in so you can do it in dry erase. My kids will change it throughout the season depending on what their coach is working on them with. And so if you're the best coach that you've ever had in your life, and he's standing on the sidelines, and before you go into the game, he says, I want you to focus on these 3 technical things, and you're going to perform well. What would it be? So I asked your coach, because I want to be reiterating what you guys did. So this P and O.
You mean Adam and I are the best coaches they've ever had?
I think they are. I think they are, but so PO stands for a post player on offense. So on a post player on offense, if coach had given you 3 cues, he would say post wide with knees bent, chin the ball, look to the middle, make a post move. And you can make that smaller. You could say knees, chin, look middle, make a move. And that would be your performance cue that you're saying to yourself. On defense, he said protect your house, make contact, 3/4 box out. So you could say protect, contact, 3/4 box out. But you're thinking, and you can make these smaller. I like 3 cues, ideally. But you can make it into whatever it is that you're working for you. A guard on offense, head up, catching 3-point threat, take an open shot. So head up, catching 3-point threat, take an open shot. A guard on defense, sit in defensive stance, slide your feet, don't reach. So this is the performance things that you're working on that you're trying to get better at. So you're going to say that performance cue to yourself. So my girls before practice, some girls drive an hour to get here. So on their way driving, they're in the back and they took their centering breath, and then like my setters, what I'm working on with my setters, they're repeating that to themselves. Because this is what we want our body to go after. This is what we want our body to do. So the first thing was what? Centering breath. Second thing, performance statement. He knows this. I make him do this in the back of the car. So the second thing you do is that positive self-talk of what do I want my body to do. So whatever coach is working with you. Maybe you really struggle with your feet, getting your feet in front of the defender. Maybe you really struggle on your follow-through. So that's what you're going to be focusing on. That's your performance statement. The third thing that we're going to do, and I kind of flip it like a movie film, is what Pele did before his games, and what you see great athletes do, is we're going to visualize. And when I first started visualizing, it was difficult, and it's a hard skill, and that's why you have to practice it over and over and over again. But when you're visualizing, your body doesn't know that you're not doing that skill. They've done studies where they've taken kids and they've just had them practice with no visualization. Then they've had people not practice, and then they've had people practice and visualize, and guess what group gets better the fastest? This one. That's practicing and visualizing. So they got better faster than the group of kids that didn't visualize. Because your body is, when you're visualizing, you're repeating that success. And you're telling your body what you want it to go after, it's like you're repping it yourself. So that's what we're going to do here. And we're going to break it into three spots. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to visualize your past best successes. We call these your big dog DVD moments. So the time when you went up and blocked the guy's shot, the time when you made the winning three-point shot, the time when you stole the ball and went and made the winning layup, whatever it is, those best moments that you've ever had. And you can pick 3 or 4 of them. And you want to visualize yourself from the angle of your head. So you can, there's different ways you can picture yourself from a camera from the stands, visualizing you or your team, or from your head. They say that the best way you want to visualize is how you saw it yourself. So I saw the defender, or I saw the offensive guy coming down, I saw myself swipe the ball, I saw myself dribble it, go down, make the layup, and you're visualizing all of that as it happens in game speed. And so you're taking the best 3 moments. So that's why when I hand out your sheets to you, you're going to write Miners game, point 15, layup, or whatever it is, and you're going to visualize that. Or the quick game, whatever that game is you played this weekend, second quarter, clutch free throw point, whatever it is. So you're going to visualize 3 great moments, and you guys should have a lot of them. And I will actually, we'll take clips off of film and play it for girls, and just play their highlights over and over and over again, so that they're putting that in their minds. The best predictor of future performance is past performance. If you've done it once, you can do it again. And so you want to be feeding that stuff in your head. So the first thing you're going to do is your best performance, past performance. The next thing you're going to do is your next really big tournament. Like for us, it's junior nationals. For you guys, I would assume it might be Wichita.
King of the Hill before that.
King of the Hill. So your next upcoming really big one is King of the Hill. What gym is that going to be? Do you know?
We're going to show up in Highlands Ranch area.
Highlands Ranch area. So I have my kids visualizing 2 to 3 months ahead of time before we go into a really big event. So that they visualize, and sometimes I'll get film of the environment and I'll show it to them. When we were playing at state, we'd go down beforehand. We're a small school, and the Coliseum is really big for state, so they'll kind of be able to visualize what that looks like. So King of the Hill, you're going to visualize yourself on that weekend. Whatever, is it in April? Or I mean, is it in not April? July. It's in July. So in the June. So it's going to probably be hot outside. You're going to be in Highlands Ranch. Teams you might be playing, if you know ahead of time who it might be, you're going to start to visualize that next really big competition. Then, and you're going to visualize yourself being successful in that. So you're going to hear the fans, you're going to know what the lights are, you're going to know what the team is, or maybe it's a faceless opponent that you're going against, and you're going to visualize yourself being successful. So that when you get in that moment, it's not this big arena effect, you've already prepared for it, you've already been there. So our first one is our past success, then we do our next really big competition, and then down here we do our upcoming practice or upcoming next competition. So you guys have practice on Thursday. So you would visualize yourself making that shot on Thursday at Montclair, and you would do that kind of 3 different moves that you're working on, and you visualize yourself right now. So that's this finger, and it's a visualizing, and that's probably one of the hardest times, because you've got to close your eyes, you've got to get rid of everything else that's going on, turn the music off, and really work on visualizing yourself being successful in the past and in the future. Okay, so that's that one. Then our last one is what we call our identity statement. I put on this finger because my identity is I'm married to an awesome man. He makes me better every day. This is my identity, so I put it on my ring finger here. So the last thing, the major thing we're going to do is our identity statement. If you guys went, let's say you went to Pizza Hut after your minors game, and Deuce, you were sitting in a booth here, and the minors team was around the corner, and you heard them say, that Deuce, he is the best this and this, or that guy he is the best free throw shooter in the state, or he hustles harder than anyone else I've ever seen. So what do you want to be known as? When people are talking about you, what do you want them to know? And you can make a stretch on this. So I tell my girls, I have girls come in and they say, I want to play Division I volleyball. And I say, okay, you want to play Division I volleyball. We had the coach from UNC, the assistant coach, just here the other day. 5% of all the girls playing in the state right now are going to go play collegiate volleyball. Only 5%. Of that 5%, only 2% are going to go to Division I. And of that 2%, only 1% are going to be heavily recruited. The rest have to put themselves out there. So I don't know if it's similar for basketball, but only about 5% are going to go on to the next level. So it's not very many people get scholarships and go on, right? So if you want to do that, then you've got to be not only the best on your team, not only the best in your city, not only the best in like 3 cities, not only the best in the state, probably, but but you've got to be good. So you got to start feeding that to yourself, right? If you want to be the best, you got to think like the best. So I tell my girls, what is your identity? What do you want to be? I want to be the best setter in the state. I am the hardest worker. I have the quickest feet. I am the best setter in the state. And they tell themselves that. So for you guys, not only do you want to be the best in 5th grade, you want to be the best in 6th grade. So I want to be the best post player in 6th grade in the state. I am the strongest, I am the fastest, I am the best post player in the state. And you tell yourself that because we want to tell ourselves positive things. They say we think 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are not very positive. We want to say positive things to ourselves. So your actions will follow your thoughts. So if you're telling yourself, I am the strongest, fastest athlete on my team, then your actions are going to follow that. But if you're telling yourself, I'm weak, I'm just a bench player, I'm never going to get playing time, I'm never going to succeed, I'm always going to get pulled out, then that's where your actions are going to follow, that weak, non-confident type of play. Okay? So that's the last major thing. So we have, what's this first one? Centering breath. This is going to take a while. Second one, it's gone. What is it? Performance statement. Good, Boston. Third one? Highlight reel. It's your movies. It's time to get to watch movies in your head. Fourth one? Identity statement. What do you want to be known as? Go after it. You want to be the best multi-sport athlete, whatever it is, go after it. And then the last one, hopefully you've gotten pretty juiced up by thinking all this stuff, and you're about to go perform, so you're going to take a centering breath. So these two, they kind of breathe together. So your last one is you're going to take another centering breath, and then you're going to go on competition. So they say you want to do this about 60 minutes before your competition. You can do it 10 minutes, but you don't want to do it 5 hours before. You want to do it pretty close to when you're going to go compete. So you're going to take a deep breath. You're going to do your identity segment, bend my knees, follow through, fingers to the hoop, or whatever it is that you're working on. Then you're going to do your highlight reel. Then you're going to say your identity statement. I'm strong, I'm fast, I'm the best post player in the state, whatever that is. Then you're going to take a deep breath, and you're going to go play. Right? All right, so that's the pregame. That's what we're doing at the beginning of every competition. And again, if all you took was a centering breath before, it would be better than probably what we're doing now. If all you did was go over your technical cues that coach wants you to work on before your game, it's better than what you're doing now. So even if you just pick 1 or 2 of those things, it's going to be good. Okay, so now we're going to get into mid-game. What I see happen to kids mid-game is they get taken out of their game by external factors. So we're going to talk about what are things in your game in basketball do you have no control over? Refs. Love them, hate them, we can't control them, right? There's a couple that weren't so great this weekend, right? Yeah, so refs. What else? Now the team, opponent. Sometimes when I'm coaching my girls, a 6'3" girl will enter across the net, and my girls will crud their pants before we even start playing. And they spend so much time focusing on that 6'3" girl, which we have no control over. None, right? So if you have really, and I've heard you guys talk about, oh my gosh, you see how big that guy is, you see how fast he is, holy cow, so fast, I can't believe we have to play him, that kind of stuff. So opponent, can't control. What else? Fans. You guys ever had obnoxious fans? When I was playing at KU, we go play at Missouri, and the fans were felt like this close. They were drunk half the time, screaming. They get our names off the roster, screaming at us. Couldn't control it. I couldn't say a thing to them. I had to block them out. Right? So fans, very good. You get people with cowbells and all kinds of stuff. What else can't you control? Can control playing time. Do you have any control over that? We'd like to, but we don't. Ultimately, it's coach's decision, right? What position you play. You don't have any control over what position you play. You don't have any control over your coach. Your coach could be screaming their bloody head off, and you can't control them, right? You can't control what they say to you, with what they do. You have no control over that, right? Your teammates. Right? Sometimes we put all our focus on, oh, he's so lazy right now, he's not working, he's got such a bad attitude, this or that. Can't control it. Right? We can try to affect them, we can try to impact them, but ultimately we can't control it. What about how tall you want to be? Ultimately. We'd love to control that, wouldn't we? Love it. Can't. Right? Ultimately how quick your feet are going to be. There is a ceiling genetically on each and every one of you. Some of you have a higher ceiling, some of you don't. I see athletes that spend so much energy talking about the genetic things that they can't change, right? So genetic makeup is another thing that we have no control over. What else? Kind of the environment. Some caught up in the lights, or that this gym is so small, this court doesn't have enough room here, or it's really sticky, or it's really slick, or it's really this or that. Can't control that, right? So there's a lot of things that we can't control. And when we start to spend, so if we focus on all of these things that we have no control over, so fans, coaches, refs, and let's say we have 100% focus to give to our performance. And I take 10% and I start thinking about the fans. And I take 10% and I think about coach. And then I take 10% and I think about this doggone ref that keeps calling this stupid call, and I wasn't in the lane for 3 seconds, and he keeps calling it. And then I think about my teammate for 10%, right? So that's 10, 20, 30, 40% that I am focusing on something that I cannot control, right? So that only leaves 60% for me to play my very best. And one time I was at a tournament, and my kids ate. We played in the morning, we played awesome, and then they fed everybody pizza, the tournament did, and we played awful in the afternoon. And this woman who's a nutritionist on our team, she said, when you eat a lot of high-fatty food, and you have 100% of the blood in your body that wants to go to your brain and your muscles, when you eat that fatty food, 20 to 30% of that blood is going to digest that fatty food, and it's going away from your blood, your brain, and away from your muscles, and you can't perform as well, and that's why you feel sluggish. So if I focus on all these things, I am not going to have the 100% to perform. So we've got to learn, and I tell kids to think, have you guys ever seen a Clydesdale horse? And they put those blinders on. Why do they put those blinders on that horse?
So you can't stray away.
He's a powerful animal, right? If something takes his attention this way or this way, watch out, right? They want all his attention to go this way. So I want you guys to learn to focus on only things that you can control, and not waste your energy on things you can't control. So in your sport, what can't you control?
Attitude.
Your attitude. Just because mom has a great attitude doesn't mean you're going to have it. You control it. You choose it every day. Just because mom is a hard worker doesn't mean that you're going to be. You have control over that. Just because dad is lazy doesn't mean you have to be lazy, right? You have control over your attitude, your effort. What else do you have control over?
Confidence.
Your confidence. We're going to talk about that. That's good. So your attitude, your effort. What else?
Focus.
Your focus. Absolutely. You choose to go chase those thoughts. You choose to think about the fan, right? So confidence. We're going to talk about that. What else do you have control over?
Building commitment. How you change your teammates.
So your communication. What you say. Yep. What else? Let me add something to this. Can you control that mistake that you made 2 months ago? No, not at all. So your past, you have no control over the past, right? And there's times that girls will get hung up about, I can't believe I hit that ball out of bounds. I can't believe I did it. I can't believe I missed that free throw. And then 2 minutes later, they're still thinking about that mistake that they made, and they have no control over it. Or I'll have players that think about the distant future. Well, what if we lose this game, and then we have to play that team on the bracket? I can't wait if we play that team on the bracket, we're going to get knocked out. You can't control that. You don't know if they're going to win or they're not going to win. So you can't control the past or the distant future. What can you control?
Present.
Right now. What's happening right now? They say win stands for what's important now. What's happening right now is what you can control. So the present. Anything else that you feel like you can control? You have control over?
Control over how much you practice.
Your skill and how your effort, how much you put into it, absolutely. So your work ethic, effort, I would say to appoint your skill level. Yep. So those are things that you have control over. So these are the things that I want you focusing on. I don't want you focusing on these other things because we can't do anything about it, all right? When I watch kids focus on things that they can't control, there's a great baseball book called Heads Up Baseball, and it uses a traffic light analogy. When you guys see a traffic light and it's green, what does that mean? Go, right? Drive, everything's good, go. When you see a traffic light, I have all my colors here, and it gets into, we're going to say yellow. It gets into yellow. What does yellow mean? Slow down, caution, right? And when it's red, what does it mean? Stop, out of control. And then our analogy is going out of control. So when I see players and they're doing well, things are going well for them, they're in a green light, and everything's going smooth, Then they make a mistake. So let's say one of my players goes back to miss a serve, or one of you guys goes in and you pull up for a jumper and you miss it, right? And I watch them and then their head starts to drop when they're running back the other way, or they'll start blaming other people. They'll start acting kind of confused, like, oh, I didn't know the play, or I didn't know what coach wanted me to do. And they start to kind of lose a little bit of control. Then they'll go down and maybe they missed their assignment on defense. And they come back and they take another shot and they miss it. You'll see them hit their leg, and you see them stomp the floor, and they're starting to get frustrated. Their eyes go down, their body movements get tighter. If that keeps going, and I saw some red lights this weekend when I was watching. There was a young player on that quick team that I felt like was in the red light, and he needed to be pulled out of the game. Number 24 from that team, just as an example. And he's probably a great kid, but he was struggling. He was struggling during that game. He was blaming the refs every time there was a foul. He was blaming them. He looked like he was near tears almost the entire second half of the game. I saw him kind of get like this on the floor, and then one time he was on the ground and he hit the ground. He, in my opinion, was in the red light, and he didn't be pulled out. And we talked to him. Have you guys ever been in a red light? Yeah. Tell me about it. What does a red light look like? Graham?
You get really frustrated after the refs start talking back. You start stomping your feet on the ground. You start yelling at your teammates and your coach.
So for Graham's red light doesn't sound like that. For him, personally, when I see him in a red light, he's very quiet. He's shut down mentally and he's shut down kind of emotionally. When I've seen some other people, so tell me, what does your red light look like?
Well, what happened on Sunday?
Okay, what'd you do? Tell me about that.
Well, I start yelling at the refs and my emotion goes up instead of staying calm.
Okay?
And then things happen that hurt the team.
Okay. So, and I saw you kind of pull your jersey up over your head sometimes, right? I used to have a girl that would pull her shirt on my sister. Can't do that. She would get so frustrated, and we had to work on that a lot. And I've had girls, hit themselves, do all kinds of stuff. What are your guys' red lights look like?
Well, I get frustrated at first, and then I kind of just get scared to do anything else because I've been doing so many things wrong.
Right. So fear of failure, we're going to talk about that in a minute. That's a big one. That's a big hazard, fear of failure. So some people shut down, and some people explode. And it's a red light the same. Both ways are a red light because your body is stopped. It is shut down. It is not performing. So our job is to figure out how do we stay in the green light and how do we prevent red lights. And my captains, they won't be nominated as a captain if they go into red lights because their job is to control themselves, and then they help control. So they go up to Deuce and they say, Deuce, remember last night in practice when you made 3 out of 5 of those shots? You can do it today. And they get Deuce out of that yellow light that he's in, and they start to learn when kids are in a yellow light, and as a good team captain, then they get people out of it. So we've got to learn how do we get out of yellows and turn them back into greens instead of letting a yellow turn into a red. So we've got to know the warning signs to that. A big portion of getting into a red light, so you were talking to me about the refs, right? You're yelling at the refs. What made you get into your red light? Was it your performance, or was it the refs, or was it Dad yelling at you? What was it?
Probably the mental aspect of it.
So frustrated about something. So a lot of people, if they start to only control what they can control, which is their effort and their attitude, and not focus on the refs, then they're going to start to diffuse a lot of that happens, right? If they take a centering breath when they make a mistake, that helps slow things down a little bit because it's in the heat of everything that it gets going, right? There's 2 big hazards, I would say, in the mental game. There's people that, exactly what you talked about, fear of failure. So I have, and I can kind of split my team in half, and I can say she's a fear of failure kid, she's an anger kid. She's a fear of failure kid, she's an anger kid. So some kids respond like that, and they shut down. That was more my style, is I would become very passive, and I would kind of shut down, and I'd have a fear of failure. Have you guys ever had a beach ball in the pool? Okay, you take that beach ball and you push it under the water. The harder you push it down, what happens? The harder it pops up, right? So when kids have a fear of failure, I ask them, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And so a kid will say, well, I'm afraid if I shake this pass, then I'll get pulled out of the game. All right? Well, let's work that. So you shake the pass, you get pulled out of the game, then what happens? Well, coach might tell me why I should play the other game, then I gotta sit on the bench. I said, okay, and then what happens out of that? Do you never ever get to play the sport again? No, I work harder in practice, or I get another chance that day, and I go back in and I play better. Okay? Face that fear. I'm afraid we're going to lose this game. All right? Let's walk through that. What happens if you lose the game? Drop in the bracket, we're going to win this. Okay, we're going to win that. So you kind of sometimes have to walk through your fear of failures. There's a story in this book about professional players under a lot of pressure. And this guy was a closer, I think, for the Red Sox. And his job is to come and win the game. So he is pulled from the bullpen into the game when there's a pressure situation, and his job is to win it. And if he doesn't win it a number of times, he's going to get fired, right? So he gets on the mound and he says to himself, okay, worst case scenario, I don't perform well, I get fired. I'm going to be fishing at my house in Colorado tomorrow. And I'm going to love it, right? So he just walks himself through it. All right, I get fired. I'll figure it out. So he doesn't let the anxiety of the moment, oh my gosh, what happens if I get fired? What happens if I get fired? He faces it. He says, okay, this is my fear, and I'm going to walk myself through it. So when you're feeling that fear of failure, I want you to confront it with things, and I want you to go, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of I'm going to get pulled out. Okay, I get pulled out, I'm going to work harder in practice. I'm going to go up after the game, and you say, Coach, what can I be working on between now and then, right? And I'm going to work harder to get back into that. The other area I see kids is anger. Anger to me is a lot like fire. Fire can be good. It can warm your body, it can cook your food if you keep it in control. If you let fire out of control, it'll burn your house down, right? And I think anger is very similar. Anger can be good. Let's say someone came up and they blocked your shot and you get angry and you motivate them. You say, I'm going to get faster on defense. I can do it, right? In volleyball, if someone comes and stuff blocks us, I'm going to hit harder, I'm going to make their hands hurt. So anger can be a good thing. So if you get angry at the ref and you say, you know what? He thinks that I didn't get my feet all the way there, I'm going to get my feet all the way there. I'm going to show him, right? And so as long as you use it to motivate you, anger is a good thing. But if you let it out of control, it's going to, then the tears come, then the jersey comes, and then it's not a good thing. So if I had to choose between fear of failure and anger, I would say choose anger and let it motivate you, but keep that anger under control, right? A couple other things that we're going to talk about is when kids go through a lot of fear of failure, it's because a lot of times their confidence is in the mover, right? So when their confidence is in the tank, then they really struggle. I have a lot of parents that will call me and say, oh, my kid's confidence, the coach took my kid's confidence away, she can't play anymore. Like there's this fairy confidence fairy that goes out there and sprinkles confidence. Like it comes and goes and you have no control over it. I believe that confidence comes from competence. Have you guys ever gone into a test and you felt very confident? Why? Why'd you feel confident? Because you studied, right? You got into a test and you didn't feel confident? Because you didn't study, right? So if you haven't been working in practice and you've missed a lot and you've been lazy, then I wouldn't be very confident either. But you guys work hard and you put the time in and you are great athletes. So you trust it. You trust your preparation and you bring it to you in the game. So they say trust it, see it, feel it, right? So when you're feeling that fear, that fear of failure, maybe it's about a move you're making, a post move you're making. You bring up that confidence. You bring it up and you say, you know what, I did this 8 out of 10 times in practice last night. I can do it today. And then you face it and you go do it. So I tell my girls there's 3 things that I want them mid-game to be thinking about. And I label these country music trophies, C, M, T. So if I am choosing to think about something, I'm going to think about these 3 things. So the first one is a confidence cue. I'm going to give myself a confidence cue. So I'm going to say, I did this 8 out of 10 times in practice. I can do it now. So I can choose positive Pete will say a confidence cue. I can do this. I've done it before. I can do it now. Or you can give yourself a motivational cue. Do you know who Muhammad Ali is? One of the best boxers ever, right? So a quick story about Muhammad Ali. When he was young, he wanted a bike. He worked for, I believe, 2 years for a bike, right? At a grocery store. Worked towards work. Had it for about a week. Went up to his apartment, slept, came back down the next morning, his bike was gone. He looked for hours for his bike, couldn't find it. So he got in the ring, he looked across, when he started boxing, he looked across to that guy, he said, that guy stole my bike. And he'd go living hard at that dude because he believed he stole his bike, right? And that was the motivation. When you box, you gotta have some motivation, right? So sometimes you need motivation. Sometimes you're tired, and sometimes someone just whooped you, and you need some motivation. So you look at the guy coming down here and you say, bring it, brother, right here, let's go. You and me, right here. So a motivational cue. So you can give yourself a confidence cue, you can give yourself a motivation cue. And the last one, country music trophies, is a technique cue. And I use this a lot. So a technical cue is what we were talking about. Mid-game, you might be shooting a free throw. You might just want to say, "Bend my knees, follow through. Bend my knees, follow through." So instead of leaving the space to say, "Don't miss this, don't miss this. Oh my gosh, look at all that pressure. I can't do it, I can't do it." You're going to say, "Bend my knees, fall through. Bend my knees, fall through." Or, I did this last night in practice. I was 8 for 10, whatever it is. So you're going to bring up this or this or this on those moments that you need to be filling that mental space. Okay? So that's what we're doing mid-game. So we talked about focusing on when you can control. We talked about staying in a green light, identifying when you get into a yellow light, and then feeding yourself these technical cues to get yourself back into a green light. Or feeding yourself these cues to not get into a red light by focusing on things that you can't control. Or negative things. Okay? And then we're going to go to the post-game. So what do I want you to do in the post-game? It's simple. You're just going to evaluate your performance. So I don't know how to fix something if I don't know what's going on, right? So we're just going to evaluate your performance. And this takes like 2 minutes after practice. So what did I do well? I boxed out really well today. In practice with this drill, I boxed out really well. What is one thing that I need to improve upon? I need to work on my inside posting. I need to work on my right-handed layup. I need to work on my pivoting off the screen, whatever it is that you're working on. So you're going to identify that. I want to work on that. And then you're going to say, what is one thing I can do differently to make that happen? Right here, here's a chart around that far wall. We call it MP 100 plus 20. I tell my girls, it's only 5% of the population finds a way to give 20% more. If you're in the top 5% of anything, you're going to be successful. If you're in the top 5% of your class, you're going to be successful. Top 5% of the state, you're going to be successful, right? Most people want to do less. They don't want to put in the time. And so they're average. If you give more, so MP 100 plus 20, I'm writing out here. MP 100 plus 20. This means that you're doing 100% of what your coach asked you to do mentally. You're doing 100% of what your coach asked you to do physically, and then you're finding a way to give 20% more. So I challenge my kids, find a way, and they write it up on a